Alright guys, what's going on? So today in this video I'm going to be showing you the best binds that you can use for competitive matchmaking, not specifically movement or anything like that, for competitive, for Faceit and Premiere. These are the binds that I've used. I've kind of cultivated these binds over a long time and figured out what works the best for people who are focused on playing the best and playing with the most efficiency. So yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so first things first, I'm going to talk about key binds. So the way that I set up my keybinds, I use WASD for moving, obviously. And one of the keybinds that I see that newer players really don't tend to enable until it's way too late are grenade binds. So if I buy a bunch of grenades here, so what happens when the game is in a default state is your grenade key is bound to cycle grenades. So it looks like this. So if I have 4 grenades in my inventory, right, I hit my 4 key, that's the default bind. So I pull out my nade, then I hit my 4 key again, and pulls out a flash, a 4 key again, a 4 key again, and then it cycles through all these nades, right? You don't want to have this enabled. The reason why is because, let's say at the start of the round, you want to throw a Molotov, right? Let's say you want a Molotov off this area instantly, you know? If you have cycle grenades turned on, you have to hit 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it pulls out, right? It's much slower than just pulling it out on its own. And then let's say, now imagine I threw a smoke at the start of the round and I don't have a smoke, and now I want to throw my molly. It's a lot harder to think, okay, instead of hitting four times for a molly, I'm going to have to hit it 3 times for a molly. And it's really easy to fumble your grenades and just kind of get stuck being like, what grenade do I want? What grenade do I want, right? So what I want you to do is to bind each grenade to a specific key. So let me open my settings here. So these are the settings that I use. These are what I personally like. As you can see, my HE is on 4, my flashbang is on my mouse side button, smoke grenade is on C, my decoy is on X. I don't really use decoy. X is kind of hard to hit, and my Molotov is on Z. So out of the keys next to your left hand that you can use, your only real options are Q, 4, Z, C, X, V, and maybe F if you want to change your inspect bind. Maybe caps lock, and definitely your mouse side buttons if you have those on your mouse, so you can hit them with your thumb. And again, the reason you do this is because it's very easy to pull out all 4 nades in a different order, right? You can see me cycling through all my grenades super fast because, you know, I'm so used to my binds like flash, molly, smoke, nade, right? You can pull them out very quick, so I want you to enable that as soon as possible. Okay, so when CS2 came out, Valve acknowledged that jump throws were a huge part of the game, right? Jump throwing a smoke is the only way that you can smoke Mirage Window, for example, or it's the only way to smoke House on Ancient out of T-spawn immediately, right? And it's very useful on CT side also for a lot of different lineups. The thing is that the in-game mechanic that Valve added is very clunky, and I don't know a single pro player or high-level player who doesn't still use a jump throw bind. Everyone uses a bind that automatically does the jump throw for them, because there's no reason to risk that 1 in 10 moment, I don't even know the odds of you missing the bind, but you don't want the bind to be missed ever, right? You want it to be 100% happening at all times. So in the description, I included my jump throw bind. What I want you to do is copy paste this into a file that I'm going to show you how to set up later into this video, so make sure you're still watching for that part because it'll show you exactly how to do it. And so that goes for forward jump throws too. And so if I was to throw a standard jump throw with my smoke here, let's say I do the jump throw. Okay, it flies like that, right? You can look at the grenade camera. Now let me do a forward jump throw. You see how it flies in a different path? This is useful because on some maps, you might be standing in this corner and let's say, I don't know, I'm making up a lineup. This is a unreleased map, right? So I don't know any smokes, but let's say you wanted to throw a smoke that just went a little bit further and it had that like perfect trajectory, right? Because you could get that little bit of forward momentum. Having a forward jump throw bind allows you to do the same thing as a jump throw where it's perfectly consistent. In CSGO, when these binds were first experimented with and discovered, people were hitting their W key and jump throw at the same time. I'm kind of making like a C, you know, throwing up grip on my left hand, hitting W in space at the same time, and you can see I'm kind of moving forward when I do this, right? And now I'm just going to hit N. It does the same thing. So I have mine on N because I find it easy to hit with my thumb. You can pick another key to put this on, but I feel like your jump throws aren't something that you want to hit on accident. You don't want to fat finger them, right? You don't want it on Q or F or something, because it can be very easy to, you know, accidentally hit F while you're hitting D, you know, in a high pressure scenario, or hit Q or something, right? So, and even a mouse button, you know, you might grip your mouse too hard and then accidentally jump forward while you're shooting somebody, you know, like you're moving like this and then, oh, well, you just got destroyed because, you know, you fat fingered. So I use spacebar for my jump throw, my standard one, and N for my forward jump throw. I almost never like miss the bind, if that makes sense, because spacebar is so easy to hit, and typically jump throws are more common, so spacebar is really, really easy for me to hit. And I guess that brings me on to my next bind that I use, which is to bind jump to mouse wheel down, and you can bind it to mouse wheel up too. If you have ever played this game for longer than, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, around 100 hours, 50 to 100 hours, it can be very clunky to jump with just spacebar, because there are times where you want to jump and then immediately jump after, but you want that jump, the second jump, to happen faster, right? So if I'm running on the ground here and I jump, that jump was instantly input by my mouse wheel down, right? But let's say I want to do a second jump. It can be very awkward to try to time the second jump perfectly when you hit the... My game just fucking crashed. Unbelievable. Alright, new map because the other one crashed. So, as I was saying, when you jump the first time, it doesn't matter if you have mouse wheel down, bound for jump, right? You're just trying to do a single jump the way you want. So spacebar is okay. But let's say you want to do more complicated movement, like going up to here and then heaven as fast as possible. If you jump and use spacebar, it can be really awkward to kind of time this second jump to get up to where you want to go. You kind of have to think way too much about it. But if I use mouse wheel down, you see how I can like instantly jump up, right? That's because on the second jump, I'm inputting mouse wheel down before the jump happens, so that I'm guaranteed to have a faster input once I actually am able to get the jump off. So again, I can jump twice very quickly at the perfect timing without even thinking, versus if I have to use spacebar, you know, you notice that it's slightly slower, right? Because I have to, you know, think about the perfect timing when, I mean, I can kind of get it, but this is much easier, and it gives you more peace of mind in more complicated movement scenarios. Let's say like here, right? If you wanted to get up on this box super fast, for whatever reason, if I had spacebar, you know, it'd kind of be a gamble if I'd get the jump off as soon as possible, but this way I'm able to do it much faster. And I use a special jump bind that you also need a file for, which I'm going to show you in just a second here. The reason you do this is, for whatever reason in Counter-Strike 2, these binds seem to be more consistent with how jumping is input. I'm not sure why. This might change in a future update, but it stayed the same for a long while, so it seems like Valve is okay with leaving this in the game. And I have the same one for duck. You know, I'm actually not too sure if duck, it matters that much, but it feels good from what I know from Counter-Strike Global Offensive to this game. The movement with these binds does feel much nicer than just on standard movement, so consider doing this for your movement config. Okay, a lot of people don't use this next bind, but I find it very useful, and I don't know why more people don't use it. It's akin to how jump throwing, you want them to be consistent. I have a bind for middle click throws. So Vertigo is a perfect map for this. There's a Molotov that you can throw from this position, where you aim here and you middle click throw, and it mollies off the side hall like this in case, you know, there might be an opper post on this position, he's forced to come forward or back. But the point is that I have always found it awkward myself to throw middle clicks by just releasing left and right. And I don't know if you can see it very well in the video, but every time I do this, where I put pressure on my index and middle finger, and I release the mouse at the same time, you see how my crosshair kind of jiggles? I don't know how comfortable I am with the fact, maybe it's a skill issue for me, but I've always found it really hard to keep my mouse perfectly steady while I'm throwing these, when I'm having to release both my middle and index finger. Because when I'm throwing a standard lineup, right, and I release just my index finger, like a left click or a right click, I still have one of my fingers on top of the mouse balancing the mouse out, but when I middle click, it's always felt like, you see how my crosshair kind of jiggles a little bit? It's just kind of sus. So I like to have this bind on one of my side buttons on my mouse. It's the forward one. I'm using a G Pro Superlight. So I don't know, what is it, mouse 5? Yeah, I have it on mouse 5. And it gives me more peace of mind when throwing these lineups. And I'll show you one more where I actually use it the most. Okay, so we're here on overpass, and it's specifically this lineup right here. I just like being able to no-think throw this lineup with a middle click throw, you know, without having to release my mouse at the same time. I mean, I can do it, but just I've been playing with this for so long that I feel like I couldn't really play without it. So use this bind at your own risk, I guess, because you can't really play without it once you have it. Okay, this is a bind that I personally don't use, but you might actually get a lot of use out of it, especially if you're a newer player who doesn't know the maps extremely well. I mean, not to yap too much about this, but I feel like I have played so much Counter-Strike that I can recreate these maps in my head with my eyes closed, and, you know, see them while, when I'm going to bed at night thinking about a match that I had played. And I can kind of visualize in my head how big the map is, but a lot of people can't do that. So if you look up at my radar, you can see how I can bind this to zoom in and out. This isn't an editing trick. I'm zooming in and out with my mouse 4 bind. So here's the bind here. It's bind mouse 4 toggle CL radar scale 0.4 and 1. And what this does is if you're in a smoke and you see somebody, and so let me place a bot here, and this will make more sense when I have the bot. Okay, so let's say short is smoked for whatever reason, and this could be anywhere on any map, right? And you didn't see this guy on the radar, and you don't know he's there. What you can do is you can zoom in. You see how I'm getting stuck on him, and I'm not actually getting stuck on this here. I'm getting stuck on him. This would be a cue for you to shoot, because now you know this guy is actually in front of you, because your radar has stopped moving. He's actually he's standing here, and you see him. And while you're in a smoke, the thing is that you can't really gauge how far away or like close you are to a wall sometimes if your radar is super zoomed out. Now, take this one with a grain of salt again, because I've played these maps so much that I know that if I was taking longer than like 1 second to walk through this smoke, there's 100% a guy like that I'm getting stuck on, right? So I can just back up and shoot that area that I was in. But this bind is helpful for a lot of players. And yeah, so 1 is the max, and then this value is whatever your default value is. So this brings me to my other point about radar. You should have your radar scale set to where you can see the whole map at once. So I have CL radar always centered as false. If I was to change that to true, you'd see that I wouldn't see the full map, but I have it on false. So I can literally see if my teammate gets in a fight in playground, I can see exactly where the other person is, and it might give you that 1 to 2 seconds of timing information, right? Let's say he was playground, and then does he have time to sprint up long? I don't know, there's 22 seconds left. I'd say if he was going to sprint up long to try to plant the bomb, right? He just killed my teammate, now it's a 1v1. He would kind of be forced to plant the bomb, right? But let's say I didn't see that, right? And I didn't see where this guy actually was, you know? He could be long. You know, I just see a red dot on the radar that's just kind of in that direction. I don't know actually how far away he is, and it takes away free information that the game actually gives you. So I always do this, where it's false, so I can see the whole map. And I find that the value of CL radar scale 0.4 has always given me that. You know, you can experiment 0.35. It's a little bit smaller, but it gives you the same idea. I like 0.4 because it's kind of perfect. So experiment with what you like. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to set up one of these files like I have it to execute these special alias commands. It's really not that complicated. It's very, very simple. So you don't need Notepad++ for this, but I would recommend installing Notepad++ because it just makes typing and you know, going through these files much easier. So what I want you to do is locate the drive that your game is installed to, and then go to this file path. So Steam Apps Common, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Game, CSGO, and it's confusing that it says CSGO, but it's Game and then CSGO, and then open CFG. And then see, I already have a bunch of files here, so I'm going to make a new one just for this tutorial. So right click anywhere in here and select new, and then text document. And then you don't have to change the name of this. You're just going to open this here. Alright, so now that you have this file open, what I'm going to do is just copy paste what I have in the description. These are just the jump and duck commands. So I'm copy pasting into there. Okay, perfect. And so what does this command do at the very end here? Host right config. So if I go to a different file path that I have saved here, you don't have to know where this is, but I'm just showing you how it works. When your game launches, every single time, what it does is it runs this config.cfg file. And what you can see here is at the very start, it unbinds all of your commands in convars and then rebinds everything from scratch, just as like a fresh slate from what you had saved last in the past. Okay, stay with me. And so what host right config does is that if you type that into console or at the end of a config file, after running all of these lines, it'll write everything that it did to a saved state in your game. And so what that means is that every time you launch your game, you don't have to, you know, run another file on top of it. It'll just be saved there and it'll be perfect. And if you change something and you do host right config, it'll save forever. And sometimes, I don't know how it is in CS2 and CSGO, sometimes things wouldn't save. This is just an extra layer of, you know, mental clarity that what you're doing is actually saving to your game. Okay, so getting back to what we were doing, now we have this text file that isn't saved yet. So what we're going to do is go File, Save As. And what I want you to do is look for Save As Type and then change this to all files. Okay, and you can see that all these CFG files show up now in Windows 10. It should be the same in Windows 11. It shouldn't be too different. You can figure this part out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this name to test.cfg and then hit save. And then, okay, so now we're in test. I'm going to close this because now it's going to open in Notepad++. It's going to make it much easier on us. So let's open test. And so in here, you don't have to do this. I'm just doing this for the video. I'm going to do echo config written. Okay, and now I'm going to open my game. Okay, so we're back in game. And let's do exec test. Alright, so you can see here that it says config written. That's because I added that echo command at the very end. So this confirms that our config was written and that our binds were saved. So if I do bind control, you see it's +duck underscore, which is the alias that we set it to. And you can do the same thing for mouse wheel down. So bind and wheel down. You can see it's +jump underscore versus just jump. So this means that we successfully did what we were trying to do. Okay, so now I'm going to go through my game settings. And this is something that I've done many times when I've gone to LAN events where, you know, I have to set up all of my settings from scratch. I'm just going to do that here for you guys. I'll only talk about settings that actually matter. And I'm going to really just be turning off all of the extra garbage that you don't want to have enabled. Okay, so if you don't want to hear me yap, you can just copy exactly what I have, and I'm going to go through everything and talk about it, okay? So going into video, you can pick whatever resolution that you want, but just make sure that this refresh rate matches your monitor's refresh rate. I've had some games where I boot up and it's on 60 for no reason when I have a 240Hz monitor, so just make sure you're doing that. In advanced video, honestly, just copy what I have here if you have a decent computer. There might be some settings that you might want to turn off if you have a lower end PC, but these run very well for me. One thing you might notice is that this setting is set to max. It's on 16. Anisotropic filtering is something that your graphics card can do really effectively. This is such an old technology that it just makes the game look way better, more clear, without you having to sacrifice any FPS. This almost, from what I've seen, it gives a 0% FPS decrease, so turn this all the way up. And then you might want to experiment with these. I know some people have different computers where these settings don't actually work as well as they should, so just experiment with these two down here. But otherwise, just copy everything I have. Okay, so the audio that I like to use and that I find is the closest to you know, real life, that it works for my ears the best, is crisp EQ profile on 100% LR isolation. I would just copy a lot of these settings I have. No perspective correction. Perspective correction is kind of scuffed. I don't know, I just turned this off. See, most of this doesn't matter. My music settings, I turn down everything except for the 10-second warning volume, because sometimes you're really focused and you know you don't know that there's 10 seconds left, so you hear it and you're like, oh shit, I have 10 seconds left, right? The other important setting is mute MVP music when players on both teams are alive. Turn this to yes, because sometimes you might be hunting a saving player, and you don't want MVP music fucking blasting in your ears. You know, you don't want Denzel Curry screaming screaming in your ears while you're trying to hunt somebody, right? They might make a footstep that you might not hear. And then if you want, you can turn MVP music up. I mean, it's kind of fun, but I've always gotten annoyed by it, so I just keep it off. Okay, now to game settings. This stuff doesn't really matter. I don't know what this setting really does. I just have it off. Let's see, HUD scale 1. This is all default. You can change the color, who cares. You want this to be show location and equipment. I'm pretty sure that's the default, but make sure it's like that. You can do colors and letters. That just shows like a little O over somebody's thing. It's not really useful unless you're colorblind. I have player pings, display and play sound. You can turn off the sound, but I wouldn't disable player pings because they're very useful when you're trying to coordinate things with your teammates. Pinging is a very useful feature that you should definitely have at least the visual on. I've known that allow animated avatars, if you turn it off, it might save some FPS, so you can turn that off. All this stuff doesn't matter. Make sure this is off. Pretty sure this is default. I'm pretty sure auto resume sniper rifle after shot is default. I'm just used to this. I don't know, maybe it's better if it's off, but I have this turned on. I disabled the detached silencer on M4A1S because it's really annoying, and if you're new to the game and you didn't know this, a detached silencer M4 actually has worse stats, and same thing with the USP, it has worse stats than the USP-S and the M4A1S, so I just disable this so I don't ever accidentally do it. And also it can lead to moments where someone's peeking you and you accidentally fat finger or right click and then you stop shooting because you know, we're living in 1995 and they can't figure out that if you're holding mouse 1 to spray, you don't want to take your silencer off, but you know, just Valve things. This view model position, I use view model preset pause 3. I'm not sure if this is classic, but this is just the command that I use. Almost every pro player uses this same view model. There's a few exceptions, but most people use this. I have first-person tracers enabled. Honestly, I don't really even notice first-person tracers, so you can disable these if they distract you, but I really never even notice that they're on my screen. So this is an important one. Always show inventory. So let me escape for a second. So if you have this disabled, it'll look like this, where so the command is cl show loadout, and if you have this off, and it takes a second here, I'll speed it up. Okay, that took a while, but you notice how it doesn't show. And you know, normally, I don't know if they changed it, but it normally doesn't show your grenades. I like to keep this on because it can be kind of like distracting to have these pieces of information not on your screen. And like I don't think this distracts anybody that like it's there at all times, so I would just have it on forever. There's no real reason to turn it off other than if you want to confuse yourself a little bit more, because you know, why wouldn't you have it on, right? So make sure that CL show loadout is set to true, or you can just set it in the menu here. Okay, and all this is default, and this I already talked about in radar, so this is no, and radar is rotating. You can turn this off if you like that, but I don't know, I find this kind of strange, so I like to have this on, where it rotates around you. And you can make the radar actually bigger if you want, but again, this is a little distracting, so I just keep it on default at 1. And then crosshair is your choice. You can pick any crosshair that you want as long as it's not totally stupid. What? And then telemetry, this is all just information for you. It doesn't change the game at all. Okay, keyboard and mouse settings. I talked about most of this, but I'll just go through it anyways. Shout out my boy Dylan. He uses toggle walk and toggle duck like a moron. That's how it is in like Escape from Tarkov, but I think it's really distracting to have to hit your button twice, you know, to crouch and uncrouch, right? It's kind of weird, and it's just a little less precise than being able to just hold it down. I mean, if you can't hold it down with your pinky, that's actually a skill issue, guys. Like, come on. It's not rocket science. We're living in 2024, okay? These are all pretty standard binds. Again, jump won't show up here because it's on an alias bind, and I'm just going to scroll through all of these. You can copy them if you want, but a lot of these are personal preference, and a lot of these you won't really use very often, and then none of this stuff matters here. And then from personal experience, NVIDIA settings and stuff, they really don't matter. You can change them if you want, but just don't change them out of like, don't go too crazy. You know, it's not like, it doesn't really matter that much unless your PC is really struggling. There's no point, right? Just leave them all standard, and just make sure that your monitor is refreshing at the refresh rate that you expect it to, because a lot of people forget to do that. And yeah, that's all I have for this video about settings. This is kind of a quick one. You know, a lot of new players, they don't really know how to set up their stuff properly and the most effectively. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did. Make sure you subscribe because I'm going to be doing more map tutorials in the future. And yeah, that's all I have for you today. Peace.